Well, today we're going to be going through, we're going to touch on Luke 15, the parable of the prodigal son. I was looking this up. Every year thousands of people get lost. Now, if you, my son's out in Colorado, so I pay attention out west. I can't tell you how many people get lost in the mountains. And it's usually not a very good outcome. It's amazing though, when people go out on these adventures, you don't start out to get lost. I mean, that's not your goal to get lost. I mean, I guess there's probably some people out there that might want to do that, but the majority of people, they go hiking in the mountains or up in the woods up north, the big woods up there, and they start out on just a fun adventure and a trip, and then they're walking along and having a good time and enjoying things, and they don't even know they're lost. Have you ever come to that moment when you've all of a sudden realized that you are lost? I was driving down the road one time, and I don't know if this was a flashback from the 70s or what, I don't know. I was driving down the road one time, and out in Utah, out in the middle of the desert, I was going to this job out there, and I'm driving down in the middle of the road, and I'm like out in the middle of nowhere. I'm going to this, I'm by myself, and I'm like, where am I? And there's a sinking feeling that you get the moment you realize you're lost. It's also the point when you realize you need help. And so the story we're about to talk about is someone who was lost, didn't know they was lost. And I want to tell you today that, without God, I'm lost. Without God, you're lost. We're all lost. And so today's story in the prodigal son, the parable of the prodigal son, Jesus tells in Luke 15, is just exactly this. That's basically it. He was lost and now he's found. So let me read this for you. If you have a Bible, turn to Luke chapter 15. We're going to go to verses 11 through 24. So here's Jesus talking. Jesus said, there was a man who had two sons. And the younger one said to his father, Father, give me the share of the estate. So he divided his property between them. And not long after that, the younger son got together all he had, and he set off for a distant country. And there he squandered his wealth in wild living. And after he spent everything, there was a severe famine in that whole country. And he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to a citizen of that country who sent him to feed his pigs. And he longed to fill his stomach with the pods that the pigs were eating, but no one gave him anything. And when he came to his senses, he said, how many of my father's hired men have spare food, and here I am starving to death? I will set out and go back to my father and say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you, and I am no longer worthy to be called your son. So make me like one of your hired men. So he got up and he went to his father, but while he was on a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion for him, and he ran to his son, threw his arms around him, and kissed him. The son said to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. But the father said to his servants, quick, bring the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Bring the fatted calf and kill it. And let's have a feast and a celebration. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and now he's found. So they begin to celebrate. I don't think, for one thing, I tell you what, folks, as church, we don't do enough celebrating. I read stories like this and thinking, man, we need to celebrate more often. The story is really about two sons. We can't cover the whole story today. We'll do that in a future thing. It's about two sons and a father. And, of course, the father is, Jesus is talking about the father's God in this story, in this parable. The younger son is the prodigal. And that word prodigal actually means wasteful, recklessly spendthrift. Wasteful, reckless spendthrift. So the context of what Jesus, remember, we always got to understand the context. We have to remember observation, interpretation, and application when we read the Bible. We got a special application coming up for you today. But the observation is that Jesus is talking to the Jewish culture. The Jewish culture, and especially a lot of the cultures over there in the Middle East, are an honor and shame culture. And the son had disgraced his father by daring to ask for his share of the inheritance while his father was still alive. That's kind of bold, isn't it? So what happened? What had to happen is the father had to sell his property. Now the Jewish culture, the property was their heritage. To sell your heritage it was a big deal. So the father had to sell a lot of his property. Now, the big thing about that is that this was happening in that family, but just think of what all the neighbors were thinking. And if you understand the Jewish culture, it was a big deal. So the father does it. He sells a third of his property because he loved the son so much. And then what the father does is that he sells the property. He gives the son an inheritance. He suffers a tremendous loss of honor in his community. He suffers a tremendous amount of shame in his community and the people around him. And also, of course, he's suffering from that rejected love of his son. And so he gives the son the money, and what's the son do? He buys a convertible, and he heads to Las Vegas. Sin City, baby. I used to live there. The son is like, you know what? I'm the one. The son's thinking to himself, haven't we all thought this? I'm the one who's going to decide my life. I'm going to figure out what's right and wrong. I'm going to live as I truly want to live, and I'm going to find myself. And I'm going to be happy, and I'm going to party all the way along. And that's what the son's thinking. And he says, this is it, man. Las Vegas, don't let nobody know what they say. Yeah. When I was there, they weren't saying that. They were just saying double down. That's all I said, double down when I was in Las Vegas. It was all fun and games until the money ran out. He had to sell the car. All the friends left. All the girls left. The party was over. You know, when I was living and working out in Las Vegas, you know how many people I saw hitchhiking out of Las Vegas? You don't know what goes on in Vegas till you live there, and then you see a whole lot of stuff. And there's a ton of people. And so the money ran out. The friends ran out. The girls left. The party was over. And all of a sudden, this dude's in desperate times, and they called for desperate measures. So what's he do? He goes out and he finds a job on a hog farm. For a Jewish boy, that's not good. The job was so bad that he longed for home. As a matter of fact, he said he longed for home. He said, my father's servants had it better than I did. And so he knew the disgrace and the shame that he had inflicted on his father, but he thought maybe I could go back and be a hired hand. So he went down to the Greyhound bus station. Go down there to the bus station in Vegas. You'll see a lot of people there looking for a ride. He had just enough money. He bought a ticket, and he headed home. And he rehearsed his speech. You ever do that? When you get ready to talk to somebody over and over, you rehearse that in your mind, what you're going to say to them. And so that's what he did. And so he gets to the bus stop. He gets off. He's rehearsing his speech. He's walking home. And he's not sure how he's going to be received because, listen, it's an honor and shame. You've heard of these honor killings? They've happened in this country, folks. This is real stuff. It happens over there in the Middle East. They kill a son and a daughter who's disgraced them. So the son's not sure what's going to happen. I mean, if you read the Old Testament, I could go back and tell you what some of the laws were we were supposed to deal with people, sons and daughters, who had disgraced their parents. What's interesting is he's walking home, he's thinking the worst, and the father is actually at home looking down the road, hoping for the best. Hoping for the best, hoping for his son to come home. And one afternoon, what's he do? He sees the son walking home. And this is why the people who Jesus is telling this story to, they're shocked. They can't believe this would ever happen. A grown man, an elder in the Jewish community would actually run after his son. They didn't do that. And he came running out of the house toward the returning son. In that culture, and what they called that father, he was reckless. See, folks, this word reckless is an interesting description of what this father did. It was reckless the way the son behaved to those people. There, I imagine it was reckless to the culture around the father. It was reckless for the father to give away his inheritance, to run after his son. This was all reckless. But he was so overjoyed at his his son's return. The father was so overjoyed that he embraced them with celebration. It wasn't until the father kissed the son, this kiss of reconciliation, did the son make his confession. And, of course, we know the rest of the story, right? The father says, let's party. Let's kill the fatted calf. That's a special occasion for the Jewish people. Let's have this big party. And you can imagine all the neighbors, because when they had a party back in those days, everybody came and they partied on for days. I'm like, why don't we do that here at church? Yeah? We are going to get back into more of the mode later on in the year. But it was a special occasion. People came from all over. The point of the story changed when the son finally realized he was lost. So many times we think, oh, that's a bad thing. It's a bad thing when you realize you're lost. But it's not a bad thing. It's actually a good thing, because the son started to change his thinking. Because what changes your actions? It's the way you think. And until your thinking changes about God and about life, you'll never change the way you're living. Everything that he wanted in life, the food, the clothing, the friends, the celebration, the love, was all at his father's house. It wasn't in Vegas or wherever you're going to find that. We sing the song all the time, right? God is a good, good father. What he has for us is way better than what we think is that we want. And that son, he traded his misery for mercy, from God's mercy. And I just want to tell you today that what the beautiful part of this story is, God as the Father never gives up on the Son. And so God never gives up on you. He never gives up on us. Jesus is still that friend of sinners, and no one is beyond his reach. And so, you know what? We were all prodigals at one time. When I was living in Vegas, let me tell you something. I was far from God. Far from God. I had people praying for me, and God was guiding us. And he brought us to Wisconsin. But all of us are prodigals. I don't know where you are in the story today. But I got somebody I want to introduce to you today, because that was my observation, that was my interpretation. Right here is my application. And I want to introduce to you Jason Groves. So Jason, come on up here. All right, like I got to drag him up here. Well, Jason's he's a PK, son of a pastor. He's a pastor's kid. And I will say this, as I understand a little bit about that, because I have kids that are pastors' kids. And so that's always challenging to live out the life of a pastor's kid. He's going to come up and share his story with you. Thanks. Hey, welcome Jason, would you?
You got to forgive me. I'm not quite the professional speaker as like my brother and dad. It runs in the family, but it stopped with me. If you would, I just want to say a little prayer to kind of calm my nerves down. And y'all go easy on me today, and we'll get through this, all right? Dear gracious Heavenly Father, I thank you so much for this opportunity. God, I pray that everything that is said here today will reach and minister somebody. And, Father, that all the glory would go to you. I ask it in your name. Amen. All right. Well, on top of being nervous and thinking about what to say, you have all these thoughts crashing into your head and everything like that. So I leaned over to my dad and I said, Dad, what's some good advice before I get up there? He looked at me and said the most profound thing I think I've ever heard. He said, don't say anything stupid. So, well, yeah. All right. I suppose, I thought about it, and it's like I called it a testimony or whatnot like that, but what I shared with Scott, it's I wanted to share my journey, things I learned, things I experienced and went through, and just how I gained understanding from it, and I guess I grew. So I guess I have to start with a little bit of background, but not much because it's not really why I'm up here today. Let's see. I was born as a pastor's kid, as you know, so I had every opportunity to start everything off right. Sorry, I'm just so nervous. So, anyways, like I said, I started off as a pastor's son. I had a lot of good learning and teaching and whatnot like that. But and as I got older, you know, went to high school and middle school, I got involved in sports, and I was kind of had a gift for that, and thought that was going to be my thing. You know, I was going to go to college. I was going to have NFL career and all this other stuff. But, you know, in the 1988, God had different plans. I blew my knee out. And if we all keep track of medical science, that was a death sentence back then. They didn't rebuild knees. When I got mine done, it was a new thing. So that career opportunity was slammed shut. Well, I mean, as a young man, I guess I took that to heart, or whatnot like that. So I decided, you know, I'm missing something. I always feel like I'm missing something or whatnot. And so that kind of started me down a road of, you know, well, I'm going to cut loose, have fun. I partied, you know, met girls, did everything you're not supposed to. And then, yeah. Nobody here done that. I didn't hear an amen, so I guess I'm all on my own. Let's see. You know, they didn't tell me when you get up there, as the years go by, when you do these things, you have to write bigger. Yeah. So, anyways, then after that, let's see where I'm at here. I guess shortly after high school, though, I did settle down, and I got married pretty young, probably too young. And, you know, we had a daughter. And this guy right here, you know what I did? I took off on her before she was a year old. I decided that there was something more out there for me. It was all about me. And, you know, the partying and the drinking and all that stuff. And now I was getting involved in dealing drugs. And I had an occasional use with cocaine or whatnot like that. And it all seemed to kind of be in the party phase of life. Oh, my picture's up there. I don't know if anybody noticed that. But, yeah, that's probably what I really looked like, you know. I looked like a stooge. But I thought I was cool. So anyways, time went on. And, you know, I was blowing it day after day and whatnot like that. And, you know, I started to regret a lot of the decisions I made. And, you know, and I always had this underlying feeling of depression and shame and anger, resentment. And rather than deal with that, it was always like running from one thing to the next. You know, it was hard to go to sleep. It's hard to wake up. It's hard to go to work. Everything's much harder when you live like this. So from that point, continued to spiral downhill. And like I said, I had lots of bouts with my parents. I couldn't just pick one. I was thinking about having them tell you some, but then they probably wouldn't get down off of here. But trust me, it was bad. I mean, they didn't deserve a lot of stuff I did. I stole from them, you know, the whole 9 yards. But to be honest with y'all, that's not why I'm here. I'm here to tell you that a guy like me, who was hooked on crack and had a 20-year struggle with drugs and alcohol. I lost houses, I lost wives, lost relationships with my family, my siblings, and just about everything. I've been homeless. I've slept in dumpsters. I've done all that stuff. But I'm here to tell you today, this guy you see right before you is, I don't know, best way maybe say it is, I'm the ashes that he made beauty with. Because today I stand before you as a man who met a very incredible woman who blessed me with 2 more beautiful kids that I can call my own, who have been a blessing to me, who have helped me, who have accepted me with no inhibition, no nothing. In fact, Brendan gave his mom away for a Shamrock Shake. But, all the things I've lost, I think I've kind of shared with you. Now I want to tell you what God has done with this. I don't know if anybody else in here had a broken life like that, or even some of it. I mean, we all had our issues, whether you call it work, church, crack, alcohol. Doesn't matter what it is. If you put it first, it's just a title in front of the symptom. And kind of lost my track there. But let me tell you about what God has done. I was in Tennessee right before I come back. And I was at a broken state in my life. I knew that if I didn't do something, after that 20 years of getting up, getting down, which that reminds me, I want to tell you, as I went through that 20 years looking back, it was very frustrating for the people who loved me and who walked with me. But I would always do good for a little bit, and then I'd mess up, do drugs or do something else or whatever, and then I'd be clean for another year or whatever, and then mess up again. Whenever my name was mentioned, it was always an eye roll involved. But I'm here to tell you, like Scott was talking about Vegas, it's a process. And we are here and now people. You got to understand, God will take you through things and get you to the point to where you can finally understand, like I did, that, like my dad, he brought up a good point one time of something called progressive sanctification, which I'm not here to preach, but I see it in my life and in my testimony. I just didn't realize it went back 20-some years. Israelites went 40, so I got off good. But I went through a lot of hills and valleys and everything else, but what I didn't realize through all the depression and sadness and stuff I had to work through is that it all had to happen to make me into the man he needed me to be. And I still don't get it perfect. I mean, that's what my wife tells me. And she has kept me on track with that. But all that stuff is necessary, to change you, to shape you, to mold you, to give you understanding that you never would have had from a testimony or a Bible study or anything else. But I can tell you this much, that, like I said, back to Tennessee, getting back, called Mom and Dad. I was in an incredible amount of debt, lost everything again. And I just finally just said, you know what? I don't know what I'm going to do. And deep inside me, I felt this just incredible deep draw saying it's time to go home. I resisted that call for a while because, some people say I might be impulsive. And when you begin to learn that about yourself, you always kind of second guess it. But I finally broke down. I remember talking to my mom and dad and telling them everything that went on. And, I didn't get the I told you so. I didn't get the preaching. I didn't get any of that. My mom said, just come on home, son. And so I did. All I did was pack up my clothes, my tools, and a car. And I drove overnight after that phone call. I didn't waste any time. I figured if I hesitated, I would blow it. I drove up here, settled in, and I'll tell you, when I started moving in that direction, I had a lot of fear, but everything started to fall into place kind of easily. I got up here, found a job relatively quickly. Started to make money, developed a plan with my parents, started to take the steps to clean my life up. And while I was going through that, I was dealing with a divorce and everything else. So anyways, from that, I ended up working hard at it and doing the best I could. But then I met this beautiful woman at church. And it was really funny because just the sight of her terrified me. You laugh, but let me tell you about the first time we ever met. Was in my brother's basement. And, she's highly educated, and so's my brother. So I'm sitting there, I'm kind of checking her out in the corner of my eye, and they're talking, and it's like about all this work stuff, intelligence, computer, this and this and this and that. And I worked up the nerve, walked over there, and I said, "Hey, how you doing?" And I said, "I'm Dave's brother," and the rest of the conversation kind of went, and I really thought, "Oh, Lord." I shook my head, and then she kind of was quiet for a while and responded with, And I remember looking at my brother, and I guess he kind of figured out something was there. So took a long time, though. I was scared if she knew me. There's no way. This girl's got it together. She's got a life. She's got a great job. She doesn't need a headache. I don't want to run the risk of ruining another life. And so it took me a while to struggle with that. And then sorry, these aren't sad. These are actually happy. But yeah, they heal, I promise. Okay. And I'm back. So anyways, a year goes by, and it was funny. It was just kind of like back and forth, talking with her and trying to get to know her. And well, it was finally, once we got through all of that, and we actually started seeing one another, and I began to know her and know the kids and everything else, I realized as I listened to her story and her background that God had already started with her many years ago, allowing her to go through her tests and trials and her learning experiences, preparing her just for me. She didn't judge me. I was scared to tell her everything I told her, but she took it all in stride like it was nothing. And it blew me away. I never had that happen. And here I had somebody who I was really liked, and I was able to start with a clean slate. I didn't have to hide anything. I didn't have to lie about nothing. And I tell you, a good, clear conscience is awesome. And so, long story short, I decided I had to grab hold of this girl and not let her go. So I tried to do everything the right way this time. So, I took the kids out, Jordan and Brendan, and I was going to ask them for their permission to marry their mother. And I showed them the ring, and Jordan cried and said, "Yes, absolutely, yes." Brendan said, "Well, if I get a shamrock shake, I'll let you marry my wife, my mom." I was like, "Deal, sold." Great kids, yeah. And but no, that's just, the humor was just, everything was like this. I mean, it was seamless. And the funny thing is, my relationship with those two kids, it's like, we never missed a beat. It didn't matter I wasn't there. It's just like I always felt like I always was. And to hear them reciprocate that feeling, it's a God thing. And even talking to my beautiful wife, when she finally, I came up with enough money to talk her into being my wife, she, no, that's not true. But we got married, and I'll tell you what, the gifts and talents she has are amazing, and just the stuff she went through, and she learned so much. She helped me get through a lot of things, and when we started working together, some of the biggest things in my life began to fall away. I think even shortly after or before we got married, I was debt free in a matter of just a couple of years. We're talking well over $20-some thousand worth of mess. But that was one of her conditions, so I made it a priority. She says, we can't do this if you don't get things in line. And I thought, oh boy, I've had this mess over my head my whole life. Well, how's this going to go away? It just did. I don't know how to explain to you, but everybody I called and talked to, going back over the years, doing all the homework and finding out all the places you owe money, all the people you've wronged, and you see it all on paper, you just, if that ain't a kick in the gut, I don't know what is. But one by one, they began to fall. One after another. And I got to tell you, I wished I could tell you a big, strong struggle about it, but there really wasn't. It just, in all this time, I could feel, I just knew God was in it with me. And things were just falling to the left and to the right. So anyways, Cheryl and God finally kind of get me going in the right direction. And I say that not being funny. I say that for real because he made us. I didn't make us. She didn't make us. He did. And it's a three-way team. And she makes me the best I want to be for her and for God. And she makes me proud of it. And I just can't ever stop talking about how great she is because she is my best friend, and I love her. So, this poor druggie, loser, strikeout, whatever you want to call me, I'm okay with it. But you got to understand that God wasn't done with that yet. He gave me two beautiful children, a woman that loved me, a renewed relationship with my parents, who, by the way, my dad is one of my very best friends. It took me so long to understand his love language. Dad was pretty stern all the time, but his love language was, man, that guy was always there. He didn't care how bad I was or how embarrassing it was for him. He was always there. And I saw that in Cheryl. And I knew that I was on the right track. So, sorry, I didn't mean to backtrack, but it was just amazing. So, if I didn't have enough to be happy about, we started to look at other aspects of my life. For instance, the child I left before she was one or around one or something like that. You know, when I look back, I think it's part of one of the processes of healing. I recall it, but I don't remember everything anymore. Probably for my benefit. But began to talk about that because it always stayed with me. I struggled with that for years. I hated myself for that for years because I wanted to think. I tried to pretend like I was a good guy, but I just was not. And I shared this with my wife and with Jordan because of their backgrounds. They both kind of experienced the same thing, but on the other side. They were the ones that were left by a father or a husband or somebody that really just left them broken. And listen to that, man. It made it even worse for me. I was even more scared. But I decided to reach out to her. I started internet stalking, which I hadn't accomplished because you all know I can't do corn pooders. My wife, she's pretty good. She can find anything or anybody. So lo and behold, I tried to reach out and touch her and talk to her. I'm here to tell you right now today, she not only responded back, but she made me feel unconditional love. She was ready for me, and we've been working on a relationship together for the past month or so now. And it's funny because I sat her down and I asked her, I said, can you share with me your side of all this, what was going through your head when this started? And it was I needed to hear it, but she said, you know, it's funny because I myself had just started going back to church. And she said, when you called, I prayed about it long and hard. And she said the one thing that she felt in her spirit and in her mind from God was, it's time. And I mean, here I stand 20 years later with all the boo-hoo stuff of the, stupidity. And God has completely restored everything. He took a broken life and made something beautiful out of it. He's blessed me with an incredible family. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to tell you something. All this up here, it's not a Hallmark story. Sounds like one, I know. Seriously, you watch them, they always end up, this terrible stuff happens, but it always ends up okay. I was one of those people who always saw that and said, yeah, but not in real life. Even when I hear stories in church, I had that through my mind. But I'm here to tell you today, and I have people physically here today to show you God's power and His strength and how He can bind a family back together. So, anyways, like I said, I'm sure there are many, many years where my parents and other people prayed, but I put a verse on my shirt today for everybody else to read. Can anybody read it, or is it too small? Well, it says, if He starts it, He'll finish it. So if you got a black sheep in your family, or a son, or a husband, or a wife who's dealing with whatever, and they've been doing it for years, and you're about ready to give up or whatnot like that, stop thinking in the moment, start thinking in the big picture, and realize that when He says a promise like this, so not like I'm a completed action or anything like that, but the one thing, it's funny, Scott asked me, what are you going to talk about, blah, blah, blah. I said, well, I don't know, and I still really don't, but I'm just kind of going where He leads me. So I wanted to share with a verse with you to give you if you're going through your own thing. And actually, my dad presented it to me, not to me, but in church this way one time. It always stuck with me. It was Isaiah 43. So I think I can recall most of it. But it says, fear not, for I am the Lord God of Israel. And He says, and though you pass through the waters, they will not pass over you. You will not drown in the rivers. It says, and when you pass through the fire, you will not be burned. You will not be set ablaze. For you are precious and honored in my sight, and I love you. Now, in your life or in my life, I don't know. But in your life, I don't know what fires are going on in your life. Depression, anger, frustration, loss. Or the waters, if you feel like you're getting drowned by the everyday struggles that you face at work, with family or relatives. But I'm going to tell you this, just that promise at the end, that you mean something to Him and He loves you. That ought to be enough. Just the one thing I would say, kind of in closing here, is my verse that brought me to salvation. It's simple like me, but it's Psalms 46:10. It's one of the hardest verses to ever live, but I have found it's the key to starting, and that is, be still and know that I am God. That's hard. So I decided that probably wasn't enough. So I was figuring, there's probably a lot of people out there who are just awful sinners and unrepentant and whatnot like that. So just to make sure, I decided I was going to punish you with a song that this song has made me cry more than once. I mean, when you're going through things, there are different songs that really touch you or whatnot like that. And this, for me, was one of them. So if you would like to go ahead and cue that up. I know none of this was planned. The guys are doing a great job. I just didn't know what I was going to do. So just be patient with me. Anybody know this one? sing along with me. You help out. Maybe it won't sound so bad then if you all sing with me.
Because of who I am, but because of what you've done, and not because of who you are, but because, sorry. Well, I am a flower quickly fading, here today and gone tomorrow, a wave tossed in the ocean, a vapor in the wind. Still you hear me when I'm calling. Lord, you catch me when I'm falling. And you told me who I am. I am yours. Who am I? That the eyes that see no sin would look on me with love and watch me rise again. Who am I? That the voice that calmed the sea, called aloud through the rain, calmed the storm in me. And not because of who I am, but because of what you've done. Not because of what I've done, but because of who you are. I am a flower quickly fading, here today and gone tomorrow, a wave tossed in the ocean. You hear me when I'm calling. Lord, you catch me when I'm falling, and you told me who I am. I am yours.
I didn't mean to screw this song up, but I would hope that the words at least touch you.
That's why I don't sing in public. I would mess it up. I have trouble just reading, so I give Jason credit for that. Well, folks, you can bring the lights up. You get a chance, yeah. And you know, the applause, there's Jason's daughter there. His daughter's here today with us. So, Ignite, come on up. You know, I had the privilege of praying for Jason while he was still in Tennessee, as I met Dave Groves, his brother, and Dave and I would pray regularly for Jason, and so his parents prayed for him on a regular basis. So the story of the prodigal son is God's mercy. It covers, God's mercy and grace covers it all. You might be today, as Jason said today, you might be, I don't know, maybe you're in church today, but you're a prodigal. Maybe you're running from God. You know, that's what Jason did. He came back, and through Cheryl's help and his parents' help and family's help, and he went through and looked at his life. I've told you this before. Unless you examine your life, And allow God to examine your life and set you free from all these things that you're experiencing. It's hard to move forward. And you could be a prodigal today. And for some of you who have prodigal children, I have a prodigal daughter. Don't give up. Don't give up praying for them. Jesus said, I am the way, I am the truth, and I am the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. So the question is, have you found your way home? Seriously, have you truly found your way home? Because this gospel that we saw in the application of Jason is not religion, folks. It's not religion. It's not being good. It's not doing good. It's a changed life. If you're trying to be good, you need to repent from doing that. Because that's self-righteousness, and that's being your self-savior. God wants you to come home. My question for you today is, have you come home to Jesus?